Hello, movie patient, and welcome to Film Therapy. I am your host and your film therapist, Brianne, also known as Miss Movies. And today on the show, as on every show, we have a special guest, and that special guest today is Ally Mushka. Hey, Ally.
Yes. Hello, Rianne.
I'm so excited. First of all, Ally and I, this is our first face-to-face meeting, so that's really
Exactly.
exciting. We've not
Yeah.
had a Twitter interaction before this, so
Yeah.
I'm very excited to meet you and get to know you a little bit better.
Yeah, you too. Thank you so much for having me on. It's great.
You're welcome. I would love for you to tell our movie patients who you are, just in case that they don't know who you are, because there are some people from the film community that aren't part of the kind of funny community, which is where we know each other.
Exactly. Yeah. I guess I've kind of come to describe myself as a video game personality. That's slowly what I guess, been building towards the past 3 years. I kind of started a YouTube channel 2 years ago now, youtube.com/Ally Mushka. And there I do Let's Plays, video games, primarily Dark Souls. People know me probably for playing Dark Souls, which is a type of video game. It's notoriously very difficult. I don't find it too difficult. I'm really interested in the storytelling aspects of the game and so on and so forth. My biggest video ever that I have on my channel is explaining the story of Dark Souls 1 and 2. And so I've kind of grown a following from that, but I've also expanded that to vlogs and things like that. And people know me on Twitter. I'm a big fan of, as you said, the kind of funny guys. Kind of funny guys are like podcasters and video game personalities as well. And so I go to a lot of events. I have a lot of friends in that community. And yeah, I do a lot of things, but primarily YouTube, and I'm just on Twitter all the time.
Nice. And you can find her on Twitter at that little fly.
Exactly, yes.
And you probably saw me tweet that out, so you can follow her right now. Go do it. Go do it right
Yeah,
now.
do it, yeah.
How long have you been YouTubing?
Yeah, so for the past 2 years almost, will be coming, I guess in January will be my 2 year anniversary. So I love it. YouTube, I think, is my favorite platform for interacting, like socially, I guess, and creating. It's just really fun. You asked me before, have I ever Twitch streamed, which is a very popular thing for gaming personalities, and I haven't yet, though it is something that I really want to get into. I want to expand kind of my brand. Right now, I'm mainly known as a Dark Souls person, and I've slowly been vlogging, but I want to get into a competitive trading card game called Hearthstone, which I'm actually pretty good at. I play it a lot in my free time, and I want to devote my Twitch channel primarily to streaming that kind of content. So yeah.
Nice, because that would be a little more not video game, but actual like physical game that you're playing, right? Or is
Yeah,
it both?
yeah, it's like it's no, it's yeah, it's not a physical. So it is a digital trading card game.
Okay.
So it is, yeah, it's technically still a video game, but not, yeah, it's like a card game basically. It's just online instead of like real. Like instead of like Magic the Gathering where you play with physical cards, Hearthstone is kind of like Magic the Gathering, but developed by Blizzard, who are the people who created World of Warcraft, and it's that world essentially, but in trading card form. And it's created, it's a veritable esport now. It's created a whole like industry in and of itself. So there are massive tournaments and really popular personalities. And essentially with me, it's like whenever I really love something, I want to be part of that something, and like I want to be the best at it. So I want to be the best Dark Souls lore personality, and I want to be like a competitive Hearthstone player, and I want to do all these things. So that's kind of like generally what I do.
I love it. Esports has like completely blown up in the last
It's
like 5
huge.
years.
Exactly. Yeah.
Now you can like major in like video game esports, which is
Yeah, I
incredible to
know.
me. I love it.
Right? It's awesome. And like ESPN has like esports now, and like it's so cool. I love it. Yeah, esports are fun.
So back to film therapy. Here's
Yeah.
how this show works. I always have a patient that is here, and other people are in the waiting room, which is our chat. And basically, we answer 3 questions. This is a storytelling show. The 3 questions are: what's a film that inspires you? What is a film or a scene from a film that triggers a memory for you? Perhaps that's a painful memory, or maybe it's a happy memory. And what is a film that gets you through difficult times? So, those are the 3 questions that I ask each guest. And I started this show because I am someone that suffers from depression, and I wanted to have an outlet for that and show that there are other people out there that have go through similar things. And I want to let you know that I am not an actual therapist. So if you do need to see a therapist, or if you do need to contact your doctor, if you're having an emergency, please do so. Contact the proper people for that. So let's go ahead and get started with our first question, which is, what is a film that inspires you? So Ally, what's a film that inspires you?
Yeah. Okay. So I thought about all these questions a lot. And for something that inspires me, I really thought about like what film has really, like, when I go back to when I'm trying to think of like a quote or an inspirational quote or something like that, what is the film that I think of when I do that? And I kept coming back to the film The Social Network. Okay. So, and I think, and I kind of came to the conclusion that it inspires me, but a part of myself that I don't really like. So I know that usually when we're talking about inspiration, we're talking about like a positive thing, like inspires me to do better, inspires me to be a better person, inspires me to go further, inspires me to get out of bed in the morning, stuff like that. I feel like The Social Network is so ingrained in my psyche, but for maybe not the best reason. So I really relate with Jesse Eisenberg's portrayal of Mark Zuckerberg. And the thing about me is that I've always been very, very smart. So that was just my thing when I was younger, whatever. I was always just, straight A student. I don't think I've ever gotten a B really, except for once in university. And I was like going through a very difficult time at that point. But intelligence has always been kind of my crutch. Like, we all use things in various ways to kind of hide ourselves from, perhaps emotional connection or whatever. And I feel like Jesse Eisenberg's portrayal of Mark Zuckerberg in that film is very much like that. I mean, like, I don't want to say that that's Mark Zuckerberg's life, but the portrayal of him in the film is basically, he gets hurt by this girl. That's his whole thing, is he gets hurt by this girl, and then he kind of feels the need, or I guess whatever, he hides behind his intelligence a lot. And I feel like I saw that and I'm like, there's a part of me that very much wants to be, so intelligent and so successful that I can just be an asshole and just protect myself in that way. And that is always kind of my mode. I've used his line. I think the line that's just stuck with me the most is kind of my inspiration, although I'm kind of saying that this is maybe not a positive inspiration, is when he's talking in the deposition and the lawyer asks him, "Do I have your full attention?" And Zuckerberg replies like, "No, you don't have my full attention. You have, the smallest amount. The rest of my attention is back at the offices at Facebook, where my colleagues and I are doing things that everyone in this room, including and especially your clients, are not intellectually or creatively capable of doing." And I have used that line before. Sometimes when I get mad, when people are telling me, I don't know, addressing like my own vulnerabilities or something, I'll throw it out there. It'll just come up. It'll like word vomit, like, "Well, I'm doing things that you are not intellectually or creatively capable of doing right now. So just stop messing with me." And, that's not a positive way to be, because ultimately the story is that though, Zuckerberg created this huge empire, he still, tries to add that girl at the very end of the film. He tries to add that girl on Facebook, and like, he's just refreshing kind of pathetically over and over again. And so, and he lost his best friend, he lost every kind of good in his life or whatever, just by being an asshole and by using that, I don't know, that superiority or that intelligence as a crutch. So though I feel like I relate to it a lot and it kind of inspires me, it's kind of a negative inspiration, but it's there, and it's something that, I deal with every day, and I'll probably always deal with, is not going back into that mode of just using my intelligence to, shield myself from feeling vulnerable.
I like it. I like that you say that it's a negative inspiration.
Yeah, it's
kind
weird,
of an
right?
interesting take on it.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess things can inspire you in both positive and negative ways.
Yeah.
Gosh, The Social Network. Do you think of The Social Network and think like, I need to build my YouTube empire, and this is kind of like the stepping stones, like he's working on his stepping stones?
Yeah, exactly. So, again, what I was saying before, I kind of have this drive to not just like, to always be I don't know, to create big things, to create huge things, to be noticed or to be remembered or something. And so I guess I just like that movie. Like, I love that movie. It's probably one of my favorite movies. And in general, like, it's positive, showing the journey from he had this one idea and then he just worked on it and he had this drive and he connected with the right people. I mean, those people are kind of negative, but ultimately he left people behind that really weren't doing anything for him. And although that's kind of like a shitty thing to do, like what he did to the Winklevoss twins is kind of crappy, he still realized that those who weren't helping. And so I need to do something that's faster and more creative. And like, so that's kind of always how I'm moving. I'm always thinking about, you know, what's the next thing? What's the next project on my YouTube channel, growing it and evolving it constantly into, you know, what's going to create the biggest thing and the most impact. And, you know, that can have a negative effect sometimes on friends or whatever. But yeah, exactly. I relate to that as well.
And it's the whole thing of it's not personal, it's just business.
Right. Yeah.
Mark Zuckerberg. Like,
yeah.
I think, like, I mean, just in life, you know, you saw him get rid of someone that was with him from the beginning, like towards the end of that film. And it sucks. Sorry, Andrew Garfield, but like, you're in the way. Like,
I know, right?
It's like the get on my level thing for him.
Exactly. So, I mean, I think I would never go to that extreme. I think I would, I don't know, like at least have a conversation about it. Because Zuckerberg in that film didn't even have that conversation. Like, Andrew Garfield's character just walks in. Right. He's like, you like legally bought me out of my company or like made me irrelevant in this company. I don't think I'd ever do that, but I would probably be like, we're cutting you out. Like, I don't know, you don't really have a choice. But then I guess he did own so much of the shares, so he probably wasn't gonna. So I don't know. But yeah.
I don't know if Mark Zuckerberg has that capability of like socially interacting with people either. And like I in the movie, I don't know him personally.
Exactly. Like, that's the movie's interpretation. We don't actually know Zuckerberg personally. Yeah.
I like to think I do. We have a comment in the chat, says Jack Shipley says, Ferris Bueller inspired me to spend my high school years getting every moment of enjoyment out of it at the expense of my grades. So I guess you're negatively inspired by Ferris Bueller in that way.
Right. At least you had fun.
You know, take it for what it is. One day, an entire year, who knows?
Exactly.
So let's get into our second question. And
sure.
I would like to know, what is a film or a scene from a film that triggers a memory for you? Perhaps it's a painful memory, or maybe it's a happy memory.
Mm-hmm. So this is probably going to be the most painful one. Like, every time I was even thinking about this in the shower, and I just started tearing up a little because it's very fresh. It's very recent that this happened. So I kind of talk about this a lot. I talk about this on my Twitter. I talk about this on my YouTube. So everyone who already follows me already knows kind of what's going on in my life because I'm very open. But I was in a 4-year relationship that recently ended. And I was living out in Vancouver, and now I moved back to Toronto. So essentially the west coast of Canada to the east coast of Canada is where I kind of left everything behind on the west coast. And I made the decision that just basically our lives were moving in different directions. And there's always obviously still love there, I just made the decision that I had to leave. I had to move back home, and I had to pursue what's passionate for me, which is, on the one hand, this YouTube and all this gaming stuff, and on the other hand, I also applied to law school, and I would like to go somewhere in the United States, and our life paths weren't really converging anymore, so I made that decision. And I think the day before, I think it was a day, I can't even remember clearly because it was so hard moving out from there, but I think the day before I went, a friend of mine who was there wanted to go to see a movie. And I was like, okay, so we went to see Me Before You. And this friend, I hadn't told any of my friends in Vancouver that I was leaving. And I never really even properly had that conversation with them, which is kind of a regret of mine, but I just couldn't. It was just too hard. And like, I just didn't want to get into it, basically. So we were sitting in the movie, and I think I was leaving the next day, and she didn't really know. And there's a scene in this movie where So Me Before You is a story about basically a girl is hired to take care of this quadriplegic man, and then they end up falling in love, and she wants to save him. And then she finds out that he wants to end his own life, essentially. And, I guess I won't spoil the movie, what happens at the end. But essentially, there's this one scene in the movie where they go to, I forget exactly where it was. They go to this resort. She's trying to show him like a good time. She's trying to show him like how to enjoy life, and that life is worth living, and that he doesn't have to end his life, essentially. And so they go to Jamaica, like this resort or whatever. And there's this one scene where there's this big thunderstorm, and she goes to close the door. He's like lying in bed or whatever. And then he's like, no, keep the door open. He wants to see the thunderstorm. And then they lie together. And this reminded me of a time in my life, which is essentially, it's both a happy memory and now an incredibly painful one, because it was with my boyfriend at the time. We went to Cuba together. And then there was this one night where we were just lying, just the two of us on the beach, like no one else was on the beach. It was at night, and there was like this huge thunderstorm, and I was like scared. I'm like, oh my God, like let's go. But he wanted to watch it. So we were lying there together. And at this point in the movie, I just started like, I couldn't hold back my tears, and I just started crying. And my friend kind of looks over at me, just like, are you okay? And I'm like, yeah, no, I'm fine. Like I kind of had to, because she didn't know. Like I didn't tell anyone, like I'm leaving, essentially. So it was just like a whole bunch of emotions, and it just triggered that memory of like, this was such a good time, and we tried to make things work, and we really loved each other, but it just was kind of destined to fail or whatever, and love wasn't enough. And that was kind of in the movie as well. It's like love wasn't enough because he wanted something else for his life. So he, in that end, makes the decision like he's not going to be with her, because although he loves her, and he can't, and she doesn't, and then she gets mad at him. Like she doesn't really understand. Like she's like, at the end of the movie, she's like, I loved you so much. Why can't this life be enough for you? But he wanted something else with his life, which kind of, I guess I'm more of like the character who's the quadriplegic, and I just wanted something else with my life. So I had to leave, even though it's amazing memories and like amazing time. It's just that love wasn't enough. And sometimes that's just what happens in life, is that you kind of have to do things for yourself. And it's so incredibly hard. But yeah, that movie now forever is like very painful. I watched it again. I went to San Francisco recently, and I watched it again on the plane, and same emotions came up again. So it'll always hold those emotions for me, I think.
What makes you decide to revisit a film that gave you such a reaction?
Yeah, I guess it's just re-experiencing those emotions. I guess it's just cathartic. Like I was going to San Francisco, and it was like, that was like such a tumultuous trip in itself, and I just needed to feel catharsis, and I suppose in a way needing to feel reconnected to that person as well. Just like, because when you truly move on from someone, it's when you stop feeling sad, or when you stop feeling angry, or when you stop feeling anything at all. So even revisiting those emotions that are very sad, it's like, it's a catharsis because it's helping you get over it, but it's also a way of holding on. And so revisiting and wanting to like re-experience those times. And although now they're painful, it was still like very, very happy at the time. So it's like a mixture of like, on the one hand, you want to move on, so you're re-experiencing it for the catharsis. On the other hand, you want to hold on, so you're re-experiencing it to relive those memories.
Wow, that's really deep.
Does that
which is good. That's why we're here.
right?
I was just thinking of a story as you were talking about yours, about like leaving people behind, leaving someone behind to do something else. And I had that one time growing up, and it really taught me like a lesson about friendship, because there was a friend that I had a friend who I was good friends with in middle school, and then we went to different high schools, and like we walked to school every single day in middle school.
Right.
And then in high school, we went to different high schools, and I would call her and get together with her because she lived not that far from me. Obviously, we walked together. But I, at some point, realized like, I don't think she will ever call me if I don't call her. Like, I don't
Okay.
think she'll ever call me,
Yeah.
basically.
Right.
And so I was like, I'm going to wait until she calls me to
Right.
like do something with her. And
Yeah.
I'm still waiting for that phone call. So like it
Oh
was hard
God.
after a year, like just thinking
Yeah.
it like because it was someone that I was close with, and then
Exactly.
realizing I guess I wasn't like
Yeah.
important enough to their life for them to like reach
It
out to me.
sucks. Yeah.
But I still think of her, and I still have very good memories of her. Like
Right.
those memories I know won't ever fade.
Yeah.
And like there's certain things like anytime I see like something with Elvis on it, I'll think of her because she like had Elvis all over her room. So
Aw.
I still have good memories of her, but I still was
Right.
so hurt like for
Yeah.
a long time. But then I also realized like this is what happens with friendships, and there's seasons of friendships, and sometimes you aren't, when you're with someone out of like convenience and out of schooling,
Yeah.
like how that doesn't always translate into moving on with your life,
Yeah.
which is sad. But and Facebook, like
Happens.
I'm friends with her on Facebook, but I don't go on Facebook, so it really doesn't.
So
I
then there you
rarely go on there.
go.
But and she doesn't go on there either, so we really don't
So
connect.
then there you go. Yeah. She needs to join Twitter.
There you go, because that's where I am all the time.
Yeah. No, me too.
All right, let's get into our final question. And our final question
Sure.
is what's a film that helps you through hard times?
So I guess it's kind of a theme, and that the hardest times for me, just in general in my life, like I've lived a fairly, nice, normal life. I don't want to sit here and pretend that I have like really deep struggles compared to some people. I had a nice childhood. I got to go to good schools. I'm debt free after I graduated. Like nothing's ever been too wrong. So hardships for me has always been relationships with other people, and primarily relationships with men, romantic relationships. I've also had problems with friends, but so as much as I try to be like a cynic, sometimes that, Mark Zuckerberg character, like I'm too cool for school. I understand the neuroscience of love. I'm smarter than my feelings. They're also like, movies like Me Before You that'll make me break down and cry no matter what. And I do feel extremely deeply about things. And one of my biggest kind of fears, I suppose, is that not finding that true love. And I think that's something that I need to get over, because logically in my head, I'm like, oh, there's no like actual true ideal version of love. Like that just doesn't exist. It's just you have people and you take them for who they are. But a movie that I always go to when I feel sad, because I just believe that it's like, I don't know, my like idea of true perfect love is The Princess Bride. And there's nothing more that I love more, I think, in this universe than The Princess Bride. And just that movie just brings me sheer joy. Just because everything about it is so positive. I feel like there's no unnecessary conflict, and just the relationship between Wesley and Buttercup, and just, I don't know, just the way the actor, like Wesley, just does such a good job, I think, of just portraying someone who's like so solid and who will never waver. And it's just the way that he looks at her in that movie, and just how they overcome death in that movie, because death can't stop true love, and just all that. It just, yeah, that's the movie that I go back to. I'm just like, well, maybe one day this will be possible, or maybe one day this will be something that can happen. Even though I know that I probably need to let go of that and just, take people for who they are and not look for that like perfect movie romance love. It's still something that helps me get through hard times, just because when I watch it, I just experience nothing but like joy, and just so pleasurable.
You're just immersed into the world of The Princess Bride,
Exactly.
which is
Yeah.
great. I love The Princess Bride. I really would like a Game of Thrones Princess Bride crossover
Oh my
somehow.
God, that would be amazing.
I feel like those worlds could work together.
They
So
could. Yeah, absolutely.
And I also really wish that there was the author for The Princess Bride, and I've said this a few times on various shows, that the author like went to write on the next chapter of their lives, the next
Yeah.
book,
Yeah.
and ultimately like he came to the conclusion that he felt that it wasn't going to be good enough, and it
Okay.
wasn't going to be The Princess Bride, and he couldn't like capture that magic again that he
Yeah.
had with this story, and so he gave up essentially. And he wrote the first, like, I guess there's like an anniversary edition of The Princess Bride where he put in this treatment, and it's called, I want to say, Buttercup's Baby, or at least it's just a chapter called Buttercup's Baby,
Right.
and it's about her daughter, and I guess the daughter gets kidnapped, and it's kind of that story of what happens with their daughter. And I really do wish that it would have it would have happened. I really do wish
Yeah.
that he could have done it, even if it wasn't as
I
good.
mean,
At
yeah,
least
exactly.
it
At
could be.
least do it. Yeah. Yeah.
I wonder if anyone will like go with that small treatment that he wrote and like actually create something out of it, which could be interesting, or people could be really upset about it as
I
well.
know. I feel like everyone's like probably too afraid to touch it just because it is this like perfect story that so many people love. So it's like, who wants to be the person who kind of like
Right.
creates a lesser
Yeah.
or whatever?
But I think it's an important lesson too that he stood in the way of himself. Like he came like had all this fear and
Yeah,
he couldn't produce it, or he could only do a little bit of it,
that's true.
because he was so afraid of what the possibility of it not living up to the potential of The Princess Bride. And
Right.
I think that we always do that. In the waiting room right now, we have someone that says like they're afraid to pull the trigger on something that they've been like, waiting to do, a decision they've been waiting to make. And if you don't, it's just you that's standing in your way. No one else is standing
Exactly.
in your way.
Yeah.
And I feel that way all the time. And I take like a hosting class, and our teacher always tells us this, like, you have to go for it, otherwise you're going to make all these excuses. It does, like, you're going to make all these excuses to when something presents itself to not apply for it or not go for
Right.
it. So you need to let that down and think like you are good enough to do it.
Exactly. Yeah. I think I tweeted out yesterday, which is like a quote that I came across recently that I think is just very important for creators. And it's like used a lot in entrepreneurship and stuff. It's like, don't let the perfect be the enemy of the good. And that's by Voltaire. So it's like,
Yeah.
don't let your idea of perfectionism be the enemy of just creating things that are good enough and doing good things and creating good content, but don't get away in yourself and thinking that everything that you need to do needs to be perfect. So that's what I'm trying to do when I'm writing my law school application essay right now. And, I'm writing it for schools like Harvard, Yale, and Stanford. And it's like hugely intimidating to be sending a piece of my writing to people in those schools who are going to determine whether or not I get into law school there. But I'm like, you just have to, you can't have in your mind that it's going to be perfect, because it's not. So just create something that's good enough and stop stalling and stop procrastinating and just hand it in.
Right. I mean, it's just like a lot of just artists in general, like how they
Yeah.
going back to certain paintings, and it's like it's never gonna be what you want it
Right.
to be, and you just
Exactly.
have to let it go. Let
Yeah.
go. Let go. It's true. I mean, pulling the trigger on just like starting this show was like
Right.
took me months, and I was like, there comes a time when you just have to like
To do
say, I
it.
have the format. I need to just do this now.
Exactly. Yeah, for
And I
sure.
probably wouldn't even be doing this if it weren't for like John Roca, who was my first guest.
Yeah. Yeah. I
If
watched
he
that
didn't
episode.
say like, "Oh yeah, I can totally do that whenever you want," like, let's do it now. How about we do it next week? And I was like, "All
Fun.
right, we
I
can
know
do it."
you need people like that, right? People are
Right.
like, like when I was doing my 7 days of vlogging, like I recently vlogged, it's just
Right.
like I had this idea and I told it to one of my friends, and then he's like, okay, well, you better do this now. You can't not do this. I'm like, oh shit, okay, I gotta actually do this now. So then I did it. Sometimes you need people in your life who are just like, you know what? No, like we're doing this and we're doing this now. And that's what's happening.
Right. You do need those
Necessary.
people. And a lot of those people come from Twitter. People I don't even know that are like,
Yeah.
"So when are you doing that? When's that happening? When are you going on
Yeah.
this show?" I'm like, "I don't
And
know
then
when
you
I'm going on
realize
that."
that they're like people who like care and like care about your content, and it's like, whoa, that's weird, but like I can't one person. Like I'm not gonna let you down. It's a
Right.
good feeling.
Well, thank you so much, Ally, for being on
Yeah.
this session of film therapy. Where can the other patients and the people in the waiting room find you?
Yeah, so you can find me on Twitter at that little fly. It's also that little fly. It's also my Instagram, and then youtube.com/ Ally Mushka. That's ALLYMUSHKA. But all that information, links to all my social media stuff, is on my Twitter at that little fly, spelled as you would imagine. And I'm also starting a new podcast, which is exciting. So stay tuned for that. It's called Love in Real Life, and it's going to be a nerdy dating podcast that I am starting with my friend Alex O'Neill, who's another video game personality, and really excited about it. So that's my next major project. So stay tuned for
I
that.
love it. That announcement like just came out like 2 days ago.
It did, yeah.
Congratulations. Very exciting.
Thank you.
Um, in the waiting room, we do have someone that wants to know about the painting that is behind you. So if you could tell us
Oh
about
yeah.
that before you go.
Oh, my painting. Oh
Yes.
yeah, that's just a flower painting that used to hang on my wall over here, but I took it down because you can tell my room is very white. So I don't know what I'm doing with that painting right now, but yeah, just really simple. Like my style is just very, very simple. So just some flowers. It has no deep emotional
It doesn't
meaning.
have a specific like artist attached to it that you're like, this is
No, it
Renoir.
doesn't.
Okay.
No, it
All right.
doesn't. Just a nice, simple like flower.
Just
And
something from Home Goods, you know.
yeah, yeah, exactly. It's nothing special.
Nice. I like it.
Yeah.
Okay, so you can find me all the time on Twitter. I am there morning, night. It's unfortunate, but you know what? That's kind of like how I get involved with things. So
Yeah.
I never would have found you without Twitter.
No.
I never would have found Screen Junkies without Twitter. Like all these good
Right.
people in my life, Twitter is
Find
the
through
reason
Twitter.
that
Absolutely.
I found them. So I have
Absolutely.
to be thankful for it. So at Miss Movies, that's my Twitter handle. So thank you so much for joining us today, and I will see you on our next session of film therapy. So bye, 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 bye.
Bye.